We're joined by Republican Senator from Tennessee and member of the Senate Armed Services and Commerce Committees, Marsha Blackburn. Senator, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Good to be with you, Jackie. Thank you.
So, Senator, you heard President Zelensky say it himself. If the West is so sure that Putin plans to invade, hit him with the sanctions now. And setting aside what we've heard from this administration all along, that sanctions should be working to deter, if we get to the point where clearly it hasn't worked, what is stopping us?
I can't imagine why President Biden will not step forward and take an action. It appears that he is waiting for things to escalate, for lives to be lost, property to be damaged. But we do know that sanctions work. And one of the things he could have done was to move in and have Russia removed from the SWIFT international banking system. Hitting those banks would be the appropriate thing to do. But Jackie, we have to realize that Putin's #1 request of the U.S. was a 5-year extension of the New START treaty. President Trump was not willing to do that. He was going to give him a 1 year with conditions. Biden gave him 5 years, no conditions. Then he did not want sanctions on Nord Stream 2. That was his #2 request. So Biden gives him that with no conditions. So now Putin feels emboldened to go in and to take this action. And we know that in 2013, when you had one Ukrainian president who would not make a deal with the EU, he leaves, he goes to Russia, you get a new president, they make the deal with the EU, and then what does Russia do? They invade Crimea and take Crimea. So what we are looking at is a Putin who is not afraid of Biden. He sees him as weak. He sees him as rudderless. He doesn't think he's going to do anything to him. So if he wants to take Ukraine, now's his shot.
Now, to your point, we learned yesterday that the sanctions package does not remove Russia from the SWIFT international banking system. It also doesn't target Russia's ability to produce or sell gas. So without those two things, is it really strong enough?
No, it is not strong enough. And this is one of the reasons that Senator Risch, who is the ranking Republican at Foreign Relations, came up with the NET Act, which of course means no, but would put these sanctions that are needed in place. Sanctions work. You have to go after the oligarchs. You have to go after the banks. You have to go after these separate Russian entities and put these sanctions in place.
And clearly there hasn't been enough support among Democrats to get those sanctions passed in the Senate. But do you think that
that's right.
And I know that the White House has been involved in that a bit.
Yes, they have. They lobbied against Senator Cruz's Nord Stream 2 resolution. They lobbied to keep sanctions from going on Nord Stream 2. Now, think about that. And it's one of the things that is hurting us today with our allies and also with U.S. energy prices.
So let me ask you this, Senator. Do you think it's possible that President Biden fears that Russia will retaliate against these sanctions with cyber attacks in the U.S.? It's kind of notable that we had the Deputy National Security Advisor for Cyber in yesterday's White House briefing talking about how all of the U.S. critical infrastructure is privately owned and therefore it's at high risk. You know, what is the other reason why they wouldn't do it now?
Well, and we know that Russia has already conducted cyber attacks. This is one of their new forms of aggression, is using cyber and going after pipelines, going after critical infrastructure. But we also have to realize that the U.S. federal government would, like some of those in the Biden administration, would like to have more control over our nation's critical infrastructure. What they need to be doing is working with the private sector to make certain that all possible resources are used for this. Indeed, Senator Rosen and I have legislation that would do a civilian cyber strike force that would help us to not only prevent but rapidly respond to such attacks.
And they've been warning the private sector to, build up your defenses and lower your threshold for reporting
Yes.
suspicious activity to the government, because we might be seeing this kind of thing pretty soon here. So what happens
That's
in your
right.
mind if Putin is not stopped? Does China take Taiwan? Does North Korea get aggressive? Is there any reason for malign actors to fear the U.S. and NATO?
There is no reason, and I think you have to go back and look at these responses going back to Obama-Biden in 2014, and then how Trump responded to them during his presidency, which was to really keep them in check. And now you see what happened in Afghanistan and how quickly Russia, Iran, and China went into Afghanistan and partnering with the Taliban. And you know China is looking at what is happening with Taiwan. We know the Olympics are wrapping up. We know that China very aggressively wants to show their force. Xi Jinping wants to say, look, I can go take Taiwan. And Putin is saying, look, I can go reunite the old Soviet Union, which has been one of his goals since the end of the Cold War.
Right. I want to turn to the trucker convoy real quick. We're running out of time. But yesterday, Capitol Police warned they're preparing for a possible demonstration here during the State of the Union. What do you make of that? What would their message be here? And given sort of the chaos that it caused in Canada, would you support that kind of a demonstration here in Washington?
You know, as I'm talking to Tennesseans, people are sick of the lockdowns, the mandates, the restrictions, and people have the right to peacefully protest, to peacefully assemble, and to address their government. And all of the protests should be peaceful so that people retain that right to address, to assemble, to protest.
Well, appreciate you coming on today, Senator. Always enjoy talking to you and hope to see you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.